I normally post jokey jokes and funny things, but I want to get a little serious in this video. I want to talk about Roe v. Wade, especially with the decision that happened the other day. And I just want to preface this video by saying whatever you're feeling, whether it's anger, sadness, hurt, pain, that is completely valid. Just do not let that turn to apathy. Stay angry. Get angrier. Use that energy to protest. Do not let this make you apathetic. Use this to radicalize yourself, to go out and cause a movement. Be part of a movement, cause change. For some of y'all, this might be the first time you've had to interact with something where it feels like you just don't fit in general society, and that might be scary for you, but do not turn to apathy. Fight for your right to exist. That is very important. And I'll touch more how to get involved with stuff like that and also resources at the end of the video, but I want to talk about the decision itself. So pretty much the ruling that they came to, the Supreme Court, was that it wasn't said anywhere in the Constitution that a woman has a right to an abortion. Now, first of all, fuck the Constitution. That's a shitty ass old ass document. It needs to be updated, but whatever. If we're looking at solely at the Constitution, the 9th Amendment literally says in there are rights that is not explicitly written in the Constitution that people still have. I feel like that ruling is kind of bullshit, but that is the ruling that the conservative majority came to. Also tied in with that ruling in the decision by Clarence Thomas, he wrote that he wants to re-examine the court cases that make contraceptives legal, that make same-sex relationships legal, that make same-sex marriages legal. While this was only written by him, the other conservatives that agree with him in the ruling itself and the outcome have not disagreed with this in a super explicit sense. So they have plausible deniability to be like, well, we're not actually going to go for that. But I'm going to warn you, the Roe v. Wade decision is just the beginning with stuff like this. You give them an inch, they're going to take the goddamn mile, okay? And other conservatives like senators and such have talked about re-examining interracial marriage and the legality of that. So keep that in mind. And the argument that they made in the decision and anti-choice people make all the time is because it's not in the Constitution, it is a states' rights issue. Now, it's important to recognize that anytime someone has defended the legality of an oppressive framework using the states' right argument, it's been because what they was doing was fucking evil. Historically, look at the fucking Civil War, but it's also bullshit in the sense is because they want this to be an issue up to gerrymandering. If you don't know, gerrymandering is how they redraw districts to make sure that votes will go to the party that they choose. And typically conservatives historically have used this to stay in power even though they do not have the majority. Now, this is not an example of gerrymandering, but it's an example of how it can play out. But for example, when Trump won, he lost a popular vote, but won the Electoral College. It's similar to that, except they redraw the lines every single time they win to make sure that they'll win the next time. That's pretty much how gerrymandering works. And what they're going to do is use gerrymandering to keep unpopular laws like this in place. Because majority of the population wants the choice of abortion. Even if they don't want abortion for themselves, they would want the choice of abortion to be on the table. It's upwards of 60%, I'm pretty sure. And effectively what this decision did is it put a sect of Christianity's interpretation of the Christian Bible above all other religions and non-religions. Because the idea that life begins at conception is a purely Christian belief, a specific Christian belief due to a specific interpretation of the Bible. And this decision elevates that belief above others. For example, in Judaism and Islam, there is laws that cover and govern the right to an abortion. And pretty much how they operate is that if the birth giver's health is in danger in any way, whether that's mental health, physical health, financial health, anything that is going to negatively impact the life of the birth giver, if they are in danger in any capacity, you get the abortion. That is how the laws operate under Judaism. I know 100%, and I'm fairly certain for Islam as well. And now people with uteruses of those religions do not get to exercise their religion. And also atheists and Christians who do not subscribe to this belief that life begins at conception do not get to practice their own choice in this instance, because there is no scientific backing for the argument that life begins at conception. I could see an argument made for life begins when sentience is developed, but that is way along in the 3rd trimester, which doesn't make any sense to completely outlaw abortion. And that's what a lot of states have done. For example, I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. That's my home state. Kentucky is where I'm from. And in that state, as soon as Roe v. Wade was overturned, they had a trigger law that went in place that completely outlawed abortion for everyone. Meaning a child who got raped would still have to carry through to term. And because effectively what this does, it strips the bodily autonomy of the birth giver. Bodily autonomy, if you do not know, is the right to your own body to consent over your body, its uses and its resources. An example of bodily autonomy is why you're not forced to give blood and donate blood, even though it'd be beneficial to general society. You're not forced to do that. It's something you volunteer to do because you have the right to say what goes on with the resources of your body. It's the same thing of how they cannot use your organs if you die unless you said that they are up for donation. It's the same concept, but now that has been stripped from anyone with a uterus. No longer will a woman have the ability to consent to having a foreign entity use their resources. No, now they will be forced to. And what this does, it effectively strips personhood from people with uteruses because they do not have agency no longer. An important thing to note as well is outlawing abortion does not limit or lessen the amount of abortions that is done. It just makes it more dangerous for who is ever getting the abortion and makes the mother or birth giver more likely to die. And what's going to happen is they're just going to use this to police women. For example, you might want to delete your period tracker because certain period tracker companies will sell that data to third parties, and then the state can buy that data. And if they see that you're traveling when you have a missed period, they can prosecute you under the guise that you're traveling to receive an illegal abortion if you live in a state where it's been outlawed. Now, one thing that I've seen a lot of TERFs do is they've blamed trans people, like trans women such as myself, for this decision because we've erased what it means to be a woman, which is bullshit. Because if anyone, trans people have been fighting harder for this than a lot of cis women have. Not to like da-da-da-da. There's been plenty of cis women that have fought incredibly hard to make sure this hasn't happened. Now, I'm not trying to throw shade like that, but trans people's bodily autonomy has been stripped from them repeatedly over and over. I mean, this year we've seen the most anti-trans bill has been put in place since the conception of this country. And like I said earlier, you give them an inch, they're going to take the goddamn mile. You let someone take someone else's bodily autonomy, what's to stop them from taking yours? You know what I mean? And something I think is very important to mention is this right now could very well mirror Weimar Germany. I'm pretty sure I pronounced that wrong, but that's the term for pre-Germany. But if you didn't know, before the came to power and implemented things like the... If you don't know why I'm flagging the words, it's so that it doesn't automatically get flagged by YouTube. But anyways, Germany was very socially progressive. They had thriving queer spaces. They actually had some of the leading research on trans healthcare and translated healthcare that all got burned by them. In fact, queer people and trans people was one of the first groups targeted in the... And with that historical precedent, it's one of the very, very important reasons that we fight now. We go out, we protest, we fight to keep our rights, to gain our rights back. Because in situations like this, things can go south from here. And I think a very important thing to mention as well is this is connected to white supremacy. A lot of the rhetoric from evangelical Christians and politicians can be traced back to the white genocide myth. And in fact, the reason that evangelicals started to care about abortion at all was because of the white genocide myth. Pretty much the white genocide myth, I'll explain it to you. So as a nation develops, typically they have less children because of the implications of healthcare and less child mortality. They don't have to have as much kids, and there's also abortions. And because of the history of oppression of marginalized groups, such as people of minority racial identities in the United States, white people have had historically more wealth than people of color. That white people went through that historical trend of not having kids as much before people of color, which means that the high proportion of white people is going to change. Now, the same amount of white people is still going to be here, but there's going to be more people of color in proportion. And that scares white supremacists because they want to have a white dominated society. So what they want is for white people to have more children. So they restrict access to abortion. That is how this is tied to white supremacy. Now, I want to talk about some resources. If you are someone who is living in a state where it will be illegal to have an abortion, look up and get in contact with the NAF, the National Abortion Federation, as well as Planned Parenthood. Through them, you can get resources to travel outside of your state to get that abortion. Now, if that won't work for you because you don't have the time to travel or there's also Plan C, which is a website you can go to get abortion pills mailed to you. I'm going to link those resources in the description as well. And when I talked about the protesting, it's important that we do protest this. Now, it's important that you do go vote in the midterms and stuff like that. But the thing is, that's not the end all be all. We have a Democratic president. We have a Democratic majority in the House and the Senate, and yet this has still happened. And I could also go on and on how the Supreme Court is undemocratic because they're not elected officials and we have no say and they're there for life. But I digress. It's important that you go out and protest, that you make people uncomfortable, that you make these lawmakers uncomfortable. And if you have a family member that is anti-choice, do not let them be comfortable in their beliefs because their beliefs are harmful. Now, they might not change their mind because a lot of anti-choice people believe truly that it is murder. And no matter how wrong they are, that is a powerful conviction to have. So still have those conversations, make them uncomfortable because as soon as they see that everyone is not on their side, you might start to see wheels turning in their head. But it's also important that we fight institutionally as well. That means we go out and protest. You can look locally at your city for different protests that are happening. I know I've seen a bunch pop up locally around me, as well as just nationally in general in major cities. So that is where you can look for that. Also, if you're not able to go out and protest, you can donate money to the National Network of Abortion Funds, the NNAF. I will provide a link to that in the description below. Also, get involved with mutual aid in your area. That is something that you can do as well to help people's immediate conditions so more people can have the ability to go out and protest as well. Like I said before, do not let your emotions turn to apathy. Use them to fuel your conviction. Anyways, have a great day. Make sure you like and subscribe, and go follow me on Twitter if you want. Have a great day. Bye.